An official source at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Expatriates said that Syria is astonished to hear the statements of the UN envoy al-Assad, which go beyond the core of his mission and clearly take the side of some circles which are known for their conspiracies against Syria and the interests of the Syrian people, and was not based on an objective reading of the political program to solve the crisis in Syria. The source added that Syria expected the UN envoy to read and analyze the content of the political program, the only political solution for the crisis, because it's based on dialogue among all Syrians. Regarding al-Ibrahimi's conclusion that the condition in Syria is moving from bad to worse, the ministry underlined the fact that everybody knows that the continuous violence goes back to the failure of the international community in making some regional and international countries stop financing, arming, harboring and smuggling armed terrorist groups to Syria. The Foreign and Expatriates Ministry has stressed that robbing 1,000 factories in Aleppo and transferring them to Turkey with the full knowledge and facilitation of the Turkish government is considered an illegal act that amounts to piracy and an aggression that targets the Syrians' means of livelihood and economic life. This was included in the ministry's letters addressed to the chairman of the UN Security Council and the UN Secretary General. Such practices, the ministry affirmed, are a direct contribution to a cross-border crime and acts of piracy, which demands an international reaction proportionate with the bulk of damage it has inflicted on the Syrian people and their economic and commercial resources. Such practices, the letters added, require from the Security Council to shoulder its responsibilities in terms of confronting terrorism and safeguarding international peace and security. The ministry called on the UN Security Council and the UN Secretary General to openly condemn such terrorist acts. The ministry also called for legal measures to be taken against the Turkish government to compel it to return those stolen properties to their owners and pay compensations for those who have been harmed by such acts, in accordance with the rulings of international law. Iranian Foreign Minister Ali Akbar Salehi has said reaching a solution to the crisis in Syria is a priority in the region. In a press conference in Cairo, Salehi pointed out that the purpose of his current visit to Egypt is to discuss bilateral relations and major regional issues, particularly the situation in Syria. He affirmed that the Middle East region is able to run its own affairs and needs no foreign intervention. Salehi pointed out that the West doesn't wish this region any good, as history proves that as a fact. The Russian Foreign Ministry has announced that the Russian stand towards the crisis in Syria has not changed, namely that the Syrians alone are entitled to decide development in their country, reiterating Russia's readiness to contribute to the establishment of dialogue between the government and the opposition in Syria. The Russian Foreign Ministry's spokesman Alexander Lukashevich said all foreign players should double their efforts in order to create the appropriate circumstances to start a national dialogue without any preconditions and in full harmony with the Geneva Accord. China has expressed hope the tripartite meeting due to be held in Geneva by the Russian and American representatives and al-Ibrahimi would contribute to a political solution to the crisis in Syria. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Hong Li has said his country supports any efforts that would speed up a political solution to the crisis, calling on all concerned parties to abide by what has been agreed upon by the world community, particularly the Geneva Statement, for the sake of reaching a just and peaceful solution to the crisis. Prime Minister Dr. Wael al-Halaqi underlined the importance of the political program presented by President al-Assad to solve the crisis in Syria. Al-Halaqi said during his meeting with Maher Karam, the Secretary General of the Democratic Arab Solidarity Party, that the government approved mechanisms to implement the political program to solve the crisis and will start next week holding consultative meetings with the parties and social, economic and civil organizations that would be the base for holding a national dialogue conference. For his part, Karam stressed the party's support to the political program and national conciliation. The Higher Committee for Relief focused in its meeting held at the Ministry of Social Affairs on the need to follow up the conditions of displaced families and adopting effective means to provide them with humanitarian aid. The committee also laid emphasis on providing heating services to these families and following up children conditions in shelters. The committee pointed out that 100 million Syrian pounds were allocated for providing clothes and food for the displaced families.